Hey all, not least Cisco Academy here. Um, so, what is the definition of copper? What is the definition of wireless, and what's the definition of fiber optic?
Copper is the main way to wire since the late 1800s. It's also the most dominant way. It covers 45% of the world internationally, and it's mostly intended to handle voice signal, but it's used for many other purposes.
Wireless is likely the most common thing you might see in like a car or something, being Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Uh, Probably the cheapest way since there's nothing you need to run from device to device, but most common.
Uh, Fiber optics is kind of technology that transmits data through thin strands of glass or plastic material. It was launched in the 70s, but it wasn't really installed until the mid 80s. So it's the newest and it's less expensive, generally more efficient, but it's not that popular as copper is.
So, what are some of the advantages of copper?
Copper, it's the most used, so that means that most electricians are properly handled to equip with it, to deal with it, and it has the most safe operating temperatures, being able to withstand high temperatures and low temperatures, extremely low temperatures, and it's one of the least expensive, and which makes it good for rural areas where copper cables have already been used to wire telephones, so that southern people don't need to pay for new cabling.
What are some advantages of wireless network?
As I stated, wireless is the most common used in many devices to connect other devices, such as Bluetooth to connect like audio devices to cell phones, for example, or cars to cell phones. There is no need to run wires or anything since it's all wireless. Many different ways to communicate, such as satellite communication, infrared communication, broadcast radio, microwave radiation, Wi-Fi, mobile communication systems. List can go on and on. But primarily, you would see Wi-Fi giving you wireless access to the internet, and Bluetooth giving you audio and other access using your phone to other devices.
So, what are some advantages of fiber optic?
Fiber optic, generally the transmission is faster. Compared to copper wire, the difference is huge, but the fiber optic transmission is actually only about 31% slower than the speed of light, and the transmission actually results in less attenuation, so it can stretch over a longer distance than copper wireless can. And while copper loses about 94% of over 100 meters, fiber optic actually can keep that for a while. So avoiding signal loss is probably like the best thing about fiber optic cables, and they're not really prone to electromagnetic interference. So they're not a fire hazard, unlike copper cables are, and can't really destroy the entire network if it does break down. And fiber optic cables don't really break as easily. They can handle about 100 pounds of pressure, 100 to 200 pounds of pressure, while copper can only handle about 25. So you don't have to replace them as frequently as you would copper wires.
So, like some of the disadvantages of wireless, I would personally say that there's always the risk of hackers. Like they can easily unauthorized people can easily catch signals through the air or networks.
I agree completely. Additionally, with copper, it's much easier to get into a copper cable than it is to, for example, a fiber optic cable, because copper is more electrical stuff, whereas fiber optic, it's light. You would need a pretty complex system to understand how the fiber optic cable would be. So, like you said, security is definitely a big way. Fiber optic would probably be the safest.
So, which one would you say is the best one, and which one was the worst?
Personally, I would say that fiber optic is the best, just due to how fast you can go. With wireless, it is hard to keep a good signal at longer distances. Like for example, if you have it in a house, you really can't go outside the house more than maybe like 20 feet, I would guess, before you start really getting bad connection. Weather is a huge deal in broadcast radio, stuff like that. And like you said, security. If I was a gamer like I am, fiber optic is the best. Like I said, fastest, high broadband capabilities. Copper, although I would admit, is less expensive. You don't have to worry about setting up all these wireless routers. So if I had to give my vote, I'd give my vote to fiber optic.
I would add on to that. Fiber optic cables definitely are a better choice over wireless and copper, just for the fact that they are more efficient, but also because there's a huge kind of socioeconomic issue when it comes to implementing wireless networking in places where there's kind of spotty coverage. So if you were to go in the middle of Kansas and for a wireless network, even though it's kind of cheaper than fiber optic, it's not going to cover much. Or if you had fiber optic, it would probably cover more, even though it is more work to put it in.
Yeah, I would also go with fiber optic as well, due to the fact that of how efficient it is and that it's the fastest way to transmit data. But a wireless has one advantage for me, being the least cluttered of the three. It's way less wires and cuts the workspace's clutter in half.
I completely agree with technology these days. Wireless is getting quite advanced with streaming. You can pretty much stream a lot of movies over wireless. You got to be careful though; you don't get into 3G or 4G areas. Just try and keep in the LTE areas, hopefully. But like I said, technology is advancing, allowing you to do a lot more with wireless data.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if wireless data started catching up to a little bit higher than copper. If it isn't already, and maybe even to maybe about 75% of fiber optic, I would guess.
Yeah, I would agree that fiber optic is the best because it's like it's like more efficient. It's not affected by weather, and there's like many more reasons to that.
This is LA Cisco Academy signing off.